What's going on, everybody? Pickin' Fights Tom here for OTH MMA, the podcast. I am here with Austin Marr, MMA, and Brent Dolan. Guys, hey, how are you doing? How was UFC 277? And I guess we'll kick it off with Brent Dolan. Brent, what were your initial reaction to UFC 277 about a day later here?
You know what? I had fun. Probably the best way I could describe UFC 277 was fun. On paper, I know it got bashed a little bit for not being a top tier card, so to speak. But there were some good matchups. There were some good fights, and I honestly I don't have much to complain about. What did you think about the night there, Austin?
Yeah, just follow your sentiments there. I think you spoke on paper the card didn't seem like it was that special, but looking at the performances and the matchups, it really delivered in my opinion. It's one of those cards that was kind of underrated and came out with a bang.
Yeah, I was initially a little bit nervous about this card going into it, especially considering that we were supposed to have Luke Rockhold and Paulo Costa on this card. I think that would have really blown it out of the water. But kind of looking back on it, after the way some of those fights went about, it left a little bit to be desired. I'm talking specifically about, there's two main ones. Let's start with the first, and we'll go periodically up the card. Magomed Ankalaev and Anthony Smith. It looked like I wasn't sure if there was a check from Magomed Ankalaev on a kick by Anthony Smith. But either way, it resulted in Anthony Smith really badly injuring his ankle at the end of the first round, and that really kind of went and carried over into the second round, and that's where Magomed Ankalaev was able to capitalize on Anthony Smith basically not being able to grapple or stand. I wish we would have seen a little bit more about that fight, just because for some reason I had a really strong gut feeling that Anthony Smith was going to be able to be a winner and at least make that fight a lot closer than what the odds makers and what the picks would have had you believe. I think he was somewhere in the plus 400s. That just felt wrong. Anthony Smith, I think, was a lot closer in talent and competition and just overall kind of dog. He is not called Lionheart than that. I'm really upset with how that one went. What about you, Austin?
Yeah, I picked Magomed Ankalaev, and I'm like you, though. Anthony Smith was a little bit too much of a dog in that fight. I think Anthony Smith presented a lot of well-rounded skills that could give Magomed some problems in there. And even with picking Magomed, I wish it would have went out or went differently. It sucks to see, Anthony Smith be kind of handicapped by an ankle injury. But Magomed took care of business, and I'm glad he kind of got a finish in there. That helps his stock raise a little bit more. And I'd like to see Magomed take another step towards maybe potentially getting a title shot, maybe face Glover Teixeira. I think that matchup's a good one for him.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. The Glover fight would be an amazing test for him. Truly tell us where. Sorry, cat's trying to get involved in the podcast here. Truly tell us possibly where he stands. I mean, he's top 5. This fight, I don't know. It kind of left me with a taste of what could have been. I just wish things would have been different, but I can't take anything away from Ankalaev, of course. The guy's a killer. What was he ranked? Number 4 going into the fight. So his stock is continuing to rise. Just to follow up on what you had, the matchup you had said there, Austin. I can't state how much I do like that Glover matchup. Whether Teixeira is willing to accept that or not, I'm not sure. But I don't see why not. He's a fighter's fighter. What did you think about that scrap there, Tom?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that didn't Yuri say that Glover was going to get the rematch and that Jan was kind of upset with that, and he's like, you want to talk about Samurai's honor, but putting Magomed Ankalaev against Jan in the meantime as a disqualifier to say, I mean, Jan really kind of needs to prove himself. Right after his last win being over Alexander Rakic, and him celebrating that, I think that he really needs to prove something in order to get back to being a championship contender. We think that whenever the champion loses, that they immediately need to, get a rematch. I don't think that's always the case. Now, if they've had 3, 4, 5, a bunch of title defenses, then sure. But if it's 1 or 2 times and immediately turns around, I think that's something that doesn't necessarily require an immediate rematch. And I think would fall into that category. He's got a win that doesn't tell us a lot about where he stands. He is aging a little bit. If we put him against Magomed Ankalaev, 2 guys that like to stand and bang, that would be a really good, I think, test for him and a disqualifier while we wait. If, Glover's going to be out for a little bit, and if Yuri, the champion, really wants to fight Glover, while we wait for that, you could have these guys, and they would finish around the same time frames, and then boom, you have your next championship all lined up in the light heavyweight division.
I would counter that though, and you spoke on Jan doesn't necessarily deserve a title shot, just off of 1 or 2 defenses, but at the same time, Glover had 0 defenses, so that makes it. I feel like Jan would be more deserving because he did defend against Izzy, and then he turned around, he lost the title, but then he followed that up with a win, even though, albeit, it's a lot of questions to it and it's a little skeptical, but I think Jan versus Yuri is the next clear step.
Well, the only difference is that the champion's not calling out Jan, he's calling out Glover. So
it's like the Charles Connor predicament.
This is like cause for like he's entitled to a rematch. Like, I'm not saying Glover's entitled. I don't think Glover's entitled to one either. He's just being chosen for it. I'm just saying Jan wasn't entitled for it just after his 1 defense of Izzy Adesanya. As far as I'm concerned, since he never really defended it against a light heavyweight, he really doesn't have another defense to his name either, if we want to, kind of factor that in as well.
Right.
All that being said, I really like where this is going and for the light heavyweight division, but I feel a little bit for Anthony Smith. I know some of his wins weren't against the top, echelon of guys in light heavyweight, but I feel for him. And, I really wanted to see, they talked a lot about if you're an announcer and you're talking about it similar to being a coach, it makes you better for your own performance. So I was really interested to see Anthony Smith and his already high fight IQ. Kind of utilize maybe that announcer and talking and breaking down fights. He's talking to Bisping. He's having the podcast. He's consumed with MMA inside of the training room and outside of it. I really wanted to see that get put together. And I thought that Ankalaev, like I said, I had that weird feeling. I thought it was going to happen. So I hope Anthony Smith can recover soon. And, we get him against another good matchup. Moving up the card, Alex, to 2 guys that are coming off of layoffs. Alexandre Pantoja went out there and looked as good as we've ever seen him. He ran, he attacked Alex Perez, jumped all over his back. They described him as sticky grappling, where it's really hard to peel him off. He was sticky, and he went in there and he got the finish just 1:30 into the round. Brent, what was your thought of Alex Perez trying to defend Alexandre Pantoja?
That was a crazy fight for as long as it lasted. They both came out banging, and you look at when you look at the stats, it was actually Perez that had a couple more shots landed. Pantoja looked. The only word I can describe him as is the only word I could say watching that live is wow. I was kind of in shock. Like he came out a man on fire, and I didn't expect him to finish Perez that quick. But on the other side of the coin, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong here, but was that not Perez's first fight back in at least a couple of years?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So, whether or not that played a part in it, I don't know. I'm not even really going to dig too deep into that because I'm not trying to take anything away from Pantoja. I'm excited for what's next for him. I have no idea what's next for him. But whatever it is, I'm going to be sitting on that couch and watching that fight.
Yeah, same thing for me over here. Pantoja, he looked like a freight train in that fight. He just came out, he had his mind on his task and what he was going to do and what he was going to do to accomplish it. And he really did. He just bulldozed through it. He got clipped a couple times, it seemed like, but he just fought through it and took his back and just, he looked incredible in my opinion because I picked Pantoja by decision. I didn't think with both of them come off a layoff, I thought it was going to be kind of a sluggish fight. And Pantoja proved me wrong in that aspect. And personally, I think what would make sense would be Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France. And we'll get more to that later. But I just think that makes more sense than anything else because Pantoja's already kind of set the seeds there. You know, he's beaten both Moreno and Kai France, and I think that's kind of a title eliminator to wait after the winner of Moreno and Figueiredo.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was going to suggest the same thing. Being that they both fought the same card, I mean, Kai France may need a little bit more time off depending on how bad that kick to the body, and we'll get to that fight in just a little bit. But depending on how bad that kick to the body was, but I think coming into the fight at 5 already, Pantoja gave him an opportunity to go out there and fight with Kai France, and potentially go on and fight for the belt after that, depending on how things shake out with Davison and Moreno in the 4th fight. So really interesting things going on in the flyweight. Like, I think if Kai France won that, I don't know if that would be I mean, I guess I would have preferred that because we would have gotten a different matchup. We wouldn't have got Brandon Moreno versus David Friego 4. But, Brandon Moreno, after changing camps, I think is going to come with a little bit of a different look. That was a good fight for him where he was the bigger guy. And he was able to, you saw at times where he was in his new stance, would revert to his old stance and have to think about being in the new stance. So I think that was good for him to go out there and get a win and get the feel for that new stance. And then when he goes back and fights Davison, I think it'll be a little bit more comfortable for him. So maybe that will shake up that quadrilogy, the first one in UFC history. Moving on up the card, we have Derrick Lewis versus Sergey Pavlovic. I mean, this is the one even more so than the Anthony Smith fight that hurts my heart. I really was upset. I mean, we've seen Derrick Lewis get hit before recently. It's been the worst that it's ever been, and we've seen him actually go out. So I think maybe that's why the ref was quick on the trigger to jump in there, Dan Marigliata. But to be honest with you, when you go back and you look at it, you could see that Derrick Lewis, he was moving his head. He was actually extending away from the canvas when Dan Marigliata jumped in. This one hurt because you wanted to really see the Black Beast get out there and get a win in his home state of Texas. I would have liked to see him add another notch into that UFC heavyweight knockout record. He seemed very relaxed and cool and calm leading up to the fight. It seemed like the stars were aligning again. And after a couple losses now, I'm starting to get concerned if we've seen the best of Derrick Lewis, and B, how much more of Derrick Lewis do we still have? What do you think, Austin?
Yeah, it's pretty worrisome. Just even though Derrick wasn't put out cold, he can't take shots like he used to. He's always fought with that style where he's willing to take one if he's can give one, in response. And it's one of those things with the finish, man. It's to me personally, I would rather see a fight be stopped early than stopped way too late, because that's how you take years off of a fighter's career, and it's just one of those things where I find myself arguing with myself on, it's at heavyweight. So Derrick Lewis very well could have gotten up and, just landed one shot on Sergey and put him out. But at the same time, it's one of those things too, where he could have been beaten on for another 3 minutes and, ended up with some really permanent damage. And nobody wants to see that for Derrick Lewis. But, with all that being said, I don't have too many arguments with the stoppage. I think Sergey is probably going to move up into the top 6. So I would think maybe the loser of Tai Tuivasa and Cyril Gane could be next for him. And also with Derrick Lewis, it's rough, but this is the business, and we all know how the UFC operates, or any MMA promotion. With that being said, and I think Derrick Lewis is probably going to be fed to any top 10 hopeful contender that's on a streak. They're going to feed him to Derrick Lewis and see, are you a top 10 guy or are you not?
Yeah, no, Tom said it perfectly there. Just it hurts the heart. This one hurt the heart. I wanted to. I was the same way. I have nothing against Pavlovic. Obviously, he's a real primetime fucking contender here. That moved him to what, 16-1 or 17-1, and he's starting to get into big names now. Derrick Lewis, man, I wanted that win for him so bad, but that's the sport, right? That's MMA. I don't know. I was worried. I did a quick preview show on my personal channel for UFC 277, and I had said, like, I don't know what happens to Derrick Lewis if he loses this one. And I'm sitting here still wondering the same thing. Like, he is aging. He's known, or he's been known to have back issues and other injuries. It's a rough life, and yeah, I wonder how much longer he's going to be around. Maybe another loss, 2 at the most, and unfortunately, I think we've maybe seen the best days of the Black Beast.
Yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the UFC heavyweight division. You have Francis Ngannou, you have Cyril Gane, and Tai Tuivasa, who are matched up for the interim title. You have Curtis Blaydes, who's just coming off the win over Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall, who's hurt. I mean, Blaydes at 5, Derrick Lewis at 4. And then you have Aspinall right now at 6, Volkov at 7. Coming into the fight, we were looking at Sergey Pavlovic, not even ranked at 17. So you got to imagine now he'll be up there right in the top 5. So that being said, he maybe wants to get back in there. He didn't take a ton of damage. If he wants to get in there fairly quickly, maybe you match him up with Curtis Blaydes, give it maybe 2 months, and then that way we keep a consistent move in the heavyweight division. Cyril Gane, Tai Tuivasa. I mean, because at the end of the day, Sergey Pavlovich, yeah, you did a good job for the amount of time that you were in the cage there. But at the end of the day, everybody's aware that one knockdown, I wouldn't necessarily consider that a win. I mean, you only have to look as far back as Tai Tuivasa versus Derrick Lewis. If we were going to do it based off of that, Derrick Lewis would have beat Tai Tuivasa, right? So for Sergey Pavlovich, I think he didn't do anything wrong, but being that he would have to wait until fighting the winner of winner of Cyril Gane and Tai Tuivasa. Even if you have to wait anyway, might as well get in there fairly quickly. He didn't take a ton of damage. Get in there, fight Curtis Blaydes, who also didn't take a ton of damage, and let them go at it and prove who's going to be the next title eliminator. So with that being said, we'll move on up to the co-main event of the evening: Brandon Moreno versus Kai Kara-France. I was on Brandon Moreno to win this fight from the beginning. I thought he was the bigger guy. He had more experience against, Deiveson Figueiredo is top of the food chain in that division, and he's going to move up to 35 soon anyway. Or 45 soon anyway. But I think Brandon Moreno, having fought that competition, there was a lot of conversation about Kai Kara-France, high-level competition that he faced, but we forget that Brandon Moreno, his last 3 fights, has been against literally the best guy in the world. And taking out the 25-50 over an hour of octagon time, that's going to make you better. I was thinking about it earlier today that these guys, when they're training, when you get to the top of the top, it gets really difficult to improve. When you're not that great and you're in there with people who are better than you, fighting them and working with them, you get better through osmosis and through training and from, just being in situations with somebody who's better than you, you're forced to adapt. But when you are the top echelon, it's hard to get better and be in there with people who are better than you or at your same level, so you can be forced to adapt and be uncomfortable. That being said, we look at Brandon Moreno in the last level competition is literally the best in the world. If it's not himself, you're going to gain, you're going to grow, and you're going to be better than that. On top of that, he's moving to a brand new camp that's going to be, be very much focused on Brandon Moreno. So I think we're going to see the best version of him, and he came out in there showed that. And I don't think that's any knock on Kai Kara-France. I think Kai Kara-France is still a top-level talent in the division as well. But, I'm really kind of jazzed up to see Brandon Moreno fight. But in terms of selling a fight, him and Deiveson Figueiredo need to figure it out. Figueiredo was ready to go in there and create beef, and they let him in, and he was holding up the title, and he was coming in there intense. And then basically Brandon Moreno's like, "No, I'm sorry if I hurt you. I didn't want to hurt you. I just want to be respectful and show people how it's good to be nice and blah blah blah." And like the exact opposite of the buildup of any fight you've ever wanted to see in your life. So it's unfortunate that the skill matchup, the style matchup is there, and the potential beef was there that we're just, we're robbed of it. What do you think?
I thought it was a great fight. And honestly, I don't think Kai Kara-France loses any stock in this one. I mean, he got caught with that body shot, the body kick, liver kick, however you want to say it, shut him down anyway. I don't think there's a fighter out there that that wouldn't crumble from that, especially in the flyweight division. Just to touch on what you were saying there, Tom, about Brandon Moreno fighting Figueiredo, so many times, and we're talking about top level elite MMA here. Absolutely. Each and every one of those fights against Figueiredo has improved Moreno's game in one way or another. He's a complete package, mixed with being Mexican blood and that granite chin that the Mexican fighters always seem to possess. I don't know. Usually, I don't like watching the same fighters fight each other again and again and again. I just get tired of seeing the same fighters. This is different though. This is let's go do this, and let's see what the fuck happens. And yeah, they need to do a little bit better job selling that. At least pretend there's some bad blood there or something. What did you figure, Austin?
I'm with you, man. I could watch these guys fight 20 times, and I don't think I would get bored. I don't have a problem with Moreno not engaging in the trash talk per se. I think they've already fought 3 times. What else is there left to say, really? Beef is only good in MMA fights or combat sports when it's real or at least believable. And Moreno, we all know how Moreno is. He's a lovable goof. He's got his Legos. He's like me. We collect toys. We collect goofy stuff. We're nerds. I just think Moreno's that's not who he is. And when it seems to be when in MMA, when fighters try to be who they're not, they come off as Conor McGregor clones or, somebody else, filling the dotted line. And, I think it was a fun fight. And like you said, Brent, I don't think Kai France loses any stock in that fight. He was looking good, especially all the way up to the finish in that third round. I mean, he was landing some solid shots in Moreno. Had Moreno stunned, I think, a couple times in there because I saw Moreno kind of back up and kind of shoot in for a takedown attempt a couple times. But, like I spoke earlier, I think Kai France versus Pantoja is the next fight to make. Pantoja's rising up, and Kai France, he's already got a loss against him, so it makes sense he would want that one back. And that would prove that Kai France is above him. So, that way Pantoja doesn't take his spot. And Moreno, obviously it's Figueiredo next.
I would like to even see that fight maybe as a headliner of a Vegas fight night or one of the fight nights, right? A 5-round would be amazing if it's going to be needed or not. But it would be nice to have that 5-round cushion just to know that we're gonna see a dog fight.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Speaking of a dog fight, mainly for Juliana Pena specifically. Juliana Pena, the previous champion, losing her belt, now regaining the status of double champ. The Lioness, Amanda Nunes, went out there and listen, I had thought that there was kind of one of two ways that this was going to go. This was either going to go the Tyron Woodley route where you lose and then that's the end of that, or it was going to go the GSP route where you lose, tapped early. It wasn't necessarily a sign of deterioration. It was maybe a sign of lack of focus or the ability to notice when, hey, I've been beat and I don't need to take any unnecessary damage. I'll come back, refocus, and come back even better. And that's what we saw with Amanda Nunes. She came out, potentially Juliana Pena, as she teetered the line between very confident and cocky. Being with the result of the fight being what it was, I think maybe she teetered a little bit on too cocky and too much confidence can definitely be a toxic thing for you. So I think Juliana Pena, now I will say this, I went back and I watched Tough a little bit. Juliana Pena is a far better coach than Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes clearly, we often see a lot of times with tough coaches, gives their part, but after hearing that she was sleeping on the gym floor, clearly Amanda Nunes had a higher goal than winning tough. She wanted to win back her belt, and I can't necessarily fault her for that. It showed in the way that the tough fighters play, or not the way the tough fighters went, but in the way that season went. I mean, Juliana Pena has 3 of the 4 finalists, and her fighters had to fight each other on 2 or 3 different separate occasions. So she totally killed tough in terms of a competition standpoint. And maybe Juliana Pena does, for that reason, have a future as a coach following a good fighting career. But Amanda Nunes came out. She showed that even though Juliana Pena was going to land some of those jabs that got her, to finish in that first fight, that she was going to be able to take those. She was going to land the hard right hand. She was going to pick her shots. She was going to land, them when they counted. And, Amanda Nunes beat Juliana Pena everywhere. She was able to stand in there. And even as Juliana Pena was throwing up those submission attempts time and time again, I think she had over 20 submission attempts. And Amanda Nunes, a couple of them were locked in, but just showed her superior IQ and ability, strength, technique to be able to fight her way out of those, even as deep as they got, and avoid them and just beat up Juliana Pena for 3.5 rounds on the ground. Austin, what are your thoughts on the Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes too?
Tom, before I forget this, you brought up a good point. Something I would like to know is in the tough competitions, how many times has the coach that lost was the like in the initial or the fight build up, how many times did the coach that lost that fight, how many times did they win the tough tournament? Did their fighter actually succeed in the whole tough tournament? Because thinking back on it, it seems to me that more times than not, the guy who loses the fight is the guy who performed better as the coach. Like you think Chael Sonnen versus John Jones, and just there's many other options, or Conor versus Uriah, even though they never fought. Conor was considered the superior mixed martial artist at the time. He was the hype train. He was the big guy coming out. But Uriah Faber was the better coach in that season. But, I mean, that's just besides the point. That's just sidetracking me. But
the only thing that breaks that mold for you is Alexander Volkanovski, but he's not somebody that I would ever categorize as somebody who's going to half-ass anything. I think somehow he just has a larger bandwidth. Like, I'm sure he gave everything to his fighters, and that showed in his fighters winning. And then he also just never loses a step at any point in his career. He's a special talent.
Yeah.
But I see what you mean.
Right. I'd just like to see those numbers maybe somehow. Maybe we'll figure it up someday. But yeah, back to the fight. Nunes, just like you said, Tom, it really reminiscent to me of GSP versus Matt Serra. And that's what I was banking on. I believed, and Pena was calling them excuses, but I believe that Nunes really did have some valid reasons. She battled COVID. She had a couple of injuries in camp. And I think she kind of underestimated Pena. She had that veil of invincibility, surrounding her. And I think this time she came out like game Amanda Nunes. We never saw any kind of cardio issues. And, the first 2 rounds, she was just peppering Pena. I mean, just solid counter shots. And when the fight got a little bit more dicier in the later rounds, when Pena started to tag back a little bit, Nunes was like, okay, I'll take you to the ground then. I'll control you on the ground. And that's exactly what she did. We just saw that championship skill set that Amanda Nunes has had for all this time. And, I don't know where Nunes goes from here. There's not a whole lot of options. Me personally, I've been a fan of wanting to see Valentina Shevchenko run it back with Nunes, because personally I thought Shevchenko won the second fight. But I don't think that happens. I don't know if it does. And Pena, it's just back to the drawing board for her.
No, absolutely. It was a good fight. Nunes came out, and you could almost, I could almost feel a difference in the lead up to this fight, even from the last one. I mean, you got to remember too, not only, as you said, Austin, did she have the injuries, the fighting COVID, but she was also a relatively new mother as well.
Good point.
And anybody with kids, or anybody that knows people with kids, you're tired. I can't imagine being a top tier professional athlete and being like a new mother, especially with guys in sports. Sometimes I guess get a little bit luckier, but a mother-daughter bond is completely different. And I wonder if that didn't have something to play with it too, because she she looked so much better in this one. She didn't come out. She didn't rush it, but then again, she knew the fire that she was playing with. So I think she executed a wonderful game plan. And you say, where does she go from here? I mean, that's the big question. I mean, it's been a question forever. The featherweight, or the featherweight? Yeah, I think her featherweight division, that
Bantamweight.
Right, but she's got the featherweight belt as well, right?
Oh, right.
Right,
Yeah, there's no one to fight there.
So I mean, there's nobody in that division unless somehow Kayla Harrison comes over and they make that work. But 135, the only thing I can think of, if not a rematch, I mean, I don't think Pena gets a rematch immediately. She doesn't necessarily warrant one. She's got to get at least another dominant performance in there before she gets another shot. But we have Ketlin Vieira too, sitting at number 2 ranked. I mean, a trilogy with Shevchenko would be amazing for the fans, but then that leaves the number 2 person out in the cold. I don't know. Does Vieira have anything for Nunes? I don't know. I mean, we've been at this crossroads with Nunes for years now. As what's next? Who's gonna even challenge her? I don't know, and that's for the big dogs over at the UFC to kind of figure out. One more point quickly, just about Juliana Pena's toughness, is you got to remember that those shots that were being landed on her put out world-class athletes before, such as Cyborg. I mean, the list is endless on who Nunes has put out with those shots. So that's just a testament to how tough Juliana Pena really is.
Yeah, no, I think you make a lot of great points there, Brent. And I think the UFC is not about, at this point with this division, making the matchup that gives that's the most intriguing matchup. I think they just need bodies for Amanda Nunes at this point, showing that, Juliana Pena, after beating Amanda Nunes, we're like, wow, she's clearly the number 2 in the division if she's not the number 1 over Amanda Nunes. And being how, Amanda Nunes just totally bodied her, it's like, oh, okay, there really truly is levels to this game. Either Amanda took one down or we thought Pena was higher than she was off of that first fight. I don't know. I think you need to give it to Ketlin Vieira after her win over Holly Holm, because Holly Holm, I think, is sitting at 4, right? And Ketlin Vieira beat Holly Holm. And Holly Holm, that was a tightly contested matchup. So you maybe have another challenger after them. But Amanda Nunes already said at the press conference, like, they had thrown out at Valentina Shevchenko. She goes, I don't know if Valentina should be, talking to me, because Valentina, I think, tweeted or something. Valentina tweeted that she did a good job, and she's like, I don't think she should be talking to me after she essentially lost her last fight. So, a lot of people in the camp think that Valentina lost her last fight. It doesn't seem that Amanda Nunes is too keen on giving Valentina a rematch just so quick. So I think it's got to be Ketlin Vieira, unless she just, decides to say, hey, screw it, I'll fight Valentina. But when you're the Lioness and, you've proven you've avenged a loss in such dominant fashion, I think you get to call a couple of the shots. So
absolutely, and Dana White even said in the post-fight conference there that not direct quote, but something along the lines as Amanda Nunes is going to do what Amanda Nunes wants to do. She runs the show now, as she should.
Absolutely. Austin, any thoughts on UFC 277?
No, not really. I think it was a very fun card, and I think this is one of those cards that kind of proves to fans that, hey, I hope you're watching every event. Just because it doesn't have the stacked names on paper, don't miss out. Give these guys a chance. Some of these guys, they're either trying to bounce back and work their way towards another title shot, or they're new guys trying to make a statement for themselves, or
Absolutely.
girls as well.
Absolutely. Well, everyone who's made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Let us know what you want to see, what your thoughts on UFC 277 was, what your thoughts on next week is. Keep an eye out for our UFC Fight Night Santos versus Hill. We have obviously Thiago Santos is fighting Jamal Hill. That's going to be a pretty good card. Keep an eye out for OTH MMA podcasts on that. Also, make sure to check us out on overtimeheroics.net. A bunch of good content on the UFC, Bellator, Cage Fury, basically any MMA promotion that you would need. We're going to have coverage for you there. Make sure you give everybody a follow. Our Twitter handles are right here at Pick and Fights Tom, at Austin MMA, and at Brent Dolan. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and hope you have a great rest of your night.